You're listening to ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio. This episode is brought to you by Maplytics by Inogic. Maplytics by Inogic is a market-leading, certified for Microsoft Dynamics 365 geoanalytical mapping app. Maplytics empowers users with powerful map visualization and routing capabilities within Dynamics CRM to drive better sales, improve business processes, and engage the right customers at the right time. Maplytics now works with Dynamics 365 version 9 and Dynamics 365 app for mobile and tablet. Inogic is a leading Microsoft Gold Dynamics CRM ISV, delivering best-in-class Dynamics 365 solutions as well as cost-effective and high-quality programming services. We thank Maplytics by Inogic for sponsoring ProdCast from CRM Audio. Well, Matthew, you've been kind of busy lately, haven't you?
I most definitely have. I've been trying to catch up on some of those things, like the year of landscaping that had been on the back burner with all the snow we had, even just a month ago.
Yeah, I've been busy as well the last couple of weeks, which is part of why our schedule has been off, but we're back at it. So I thought, let's take this busyness we've had and make a podcast episode out of it, because this is a great topic of how do you stay productive when you're busy. Now, we've talked before about how busyness doesn't equal productivity, but everybody is going to get sometimes where things just get busy, either with work or, some people are really busy this time of year that have children that are graduating and there's a million graduation parties and things to do. So when you hit those busy times, how do you stay productive? So let's look at kind of your goals. So we talked beginning of the year about goals. So say you have goals like you do with your shrubbery or reading books or whatever your goal is. What are some things you do even when you feel like you're underwater to still stay productive towards your goals?
Yeah. So I'll start with the example of the year of landscaping that I was talking about, because that's definitely one where not only is it something that's been one of those goals, and I have been busy with a lot of other things, especially as weather gets nice, and I'm feeling behind in that. So the biggest thing for me that I've been doing is taking any pocket of time that I can, even if it kind of seems insignificant, and trying to make some sort of progress toward that. So in the landscaping example, it is there have been some things as far as the we call it call before you dig. It's the 811 service to make sure that you're not going to hit any gas lines or water mains or anything like that when you're doing those sorts of things.
Yeah.
It's a 15-minute activity to go online, fill out the form that you need to get all that stuff done. But at that point, it pushes some of the actual work out to me waiting on somebody else to do it. They're going to come and mark all of those things. So having a handful of those little things that I can do where I'm making progress on the goal, I'm being productive in that way, and even for that specific one, kind of outsourcing some of it when there's no way I could do that thing myself.
And let me tell you, that call before you dig stuff, you want to do that. I one time was planting some trees, and it was a Saturday afternoon, and I cut the main cable line for my neighborhood and the next neighborhood over right before the big game.
Oh no!
You don't want to do that. Let me just tell you.
Don't want to be that guy. And I'm a we've been in this same house for about 6 years at this point, and there's some stuff that's already been planted, and it seems safe enough to go in some of those places that have already been dug up. But one of them's definitely near where the gas line comes into our house, and I just want to know, where does it actually run? Where do I need to be ginger versus not when we actually get there? But I tell you, on the flip side of some of those little things that I try to have in the back pocket, it's trying to take advantage of when things align. And by that, I mean, we did have just this last weekend some really great weather for being able to be outside. And I basically took a bunch of things that were on my calendar for this last weekend, and I got some coverage on my daughter from my very understanding wife to take care of her while I just went to town in the yard. And I did have a little gardening help from Emilia, my little one, but her attention span just isn't there yet. But just kind of striking while the iron is hot in having that nice weather and really being able to make substantial progress in that way. And now I have a bunch of new little things that I can do, little follow-up things from the heavy lifting that happened over the last weekend.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think when you get in that really busy stretch, like say you're traveling for 3 or 4 days or the whole week, or you have a bunch of things that come together with meetings with people and things you got to prepare for, you can come to like the end of your week, like Friday afternoon, and just feel like you want to veg a little bit because you've been working so hard. But if you can psych yourself up and talk to yourself and say, push through on these 4 or 5 items while you have some breathing room, take advantage of that time, you will build up some in reserve that you'll have the like next week or next day will be easier. That's one thing I do. I've had last 2 weeks have been fairly busy travel weeks for me, and travel is great, but sometimes it just disrupts your schedule because you're off on your normal routines and you're sitting in the airport. And I've had pretty good fortunes traveling in that I haven't had a lot of flights get delayed, but for some reason the last 2 weeks, mainly weather related, I've had 2 times where I've had multiple hour layovers or times between flights. And that's the time when it's really tempting to just go to the Starbucks, get the drink that's bad for you, and just sit there and, just kind of space out and watch the funny people around you. But what I found is those were actually my 2 most productive days, because I could use that time, and I have all these things on my list that I need to do, but they're not urgent, that they're important to me. And I just push myself like, okay, I'm going to put my expense reports in so I don't get behind on that. I'm going to, finish a training module I'm going through on field service. I'm going to respond to some emails that I got that I filed away for later. And, it kind of turns into a race against the clock, which motivates me to work a little bit faster, because like yesterday my plane was supposed to leave at 7 and instead it was leaving at 9:30 p.m. So then we're getting close to like 8:30, 8:45, getting to that boarding window, and I have like 1 or 2 things left, so I'm just pushing through and like finish it up and get done and go get a drink of water before I get on the plane. It makes that time go much faster. And I know that I don't have to worry about it. I get home and immediately have to do more work when that's the last thing I want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that falls right in line, that deadline that's encroaching, much in the same way of, you've mentioned this several times before, but unplugging your laptop so you're running on battery power, and that there's limited time, and just that sense of a deadline, even if it's not truly real, is there, and kind of helps keep that focus and keep that pressure on.
How about building and maintaining relationships, friends, colleagues, spouse, I don't know, while you're really busy? How do you keep focus on that while keeping focus on what you're busy with?
Yeah, so I'll be curious what you have to say on this one. I myself am not a huge social media person. I certainly post on LinkedIn and Twitter as far as like interesting content, but I'm not much of a keep people up to date on what I'm doing, or try to connect with people through those platforms. It just hasn't been me. So I more rely on I'm in my car. Who is it that I can call to have a quick conversation, just catch up with, or leave them a voicemail saying, hey, I was thinking of you. Let's catch up sometime soon. And I'll usually have a list that I make at the beginning of the month of people that I want to try to get together with and coordinate something that way. And then within a week, it's who are the people that I want to just connect with in some way over the phone. So when I find those whether it's a time in the car, or I find myself with a little, bubble of time available to me, I can, pick up the phone and make that call. Sometimes it's shooting a text to somebody, depending on the way we usually communicate. But that's usually my thing. How about you?
Yeah, I guess same kind of thing. You'll have certain people, and keep this more in the professional realm. I mean, for personal people, your grandma or whatever, I think keeping track of how long it's been since you've talked to that person or you called your mom, and just scheduling time to do it, or doing it while you're in the car. That's good. I do find though that's one of the reasons why I've started to use more Uber or Lyft rather than renting a car sometimes when I travel, because that gives you some extra time where you can text people or catch up on things, or even call people if it's okay with the driver in the car. Than if you're having to drive and navigate in a city that you have never been to before.
Yeah, makes total sense. So how about as far as just basic things like keeping your priorities in check? It's really easy to let those slip when you're in the middle of a really busy stretch. So what do you do to try to maintain that?
So I have a couple of strategies that I use, and one of my priorities is that I always want to keep learning. I always want to, especially technology world, the changing products we work with. We're now doing Power Apps. We didn't know we were doing Power Apps 4 weeks ago. So there's a lot of stuff to learn. And so how do you do that if you are busy from 8 to 5 and then have responsibilities after work? One thing I will do within reason, and I have to stop myself or else I'll do this all the time, is for a short window of time, maybe get up an hour earlier. Like this week, let's say this week, I have meetings and other things and travel that's going to take me away from that, but I still want to be learning something. So I'm going to set my alarm and get up at, instead of 6:30, 5:30, and then have a little bit of time, at least 30 to 60 minutes before I have to take my kids to school and go to work, so that I can focus on that while still making family and work a priority. And as long as you have a short time period to do that, you can avoid becoming a workaholic with it. But if you're always doing that, then it's a problem, and you'll burn yourself out. But I find if I say for 1 week I'm going to get up an hour early and focus on this till I get through this and master this training, I found that very effective to add a new skill set or learn a new technology. Or sometimes I'll do that, when I got a big book I'm reading and it's just something I'm interested in, not necessarily work related. I recently read a really big book, and so I would, for a while, I would find times like that so I could keep making progress with it, and using some of the tips that we talked about before, with sometimes having my phone play the book to me and other things. But yeah, keeping a focus on that, keeping at it till I get done.
Joel reads War and Peace.
I tried, and I gave it up. That was one of the books. I told you at the beginning of the year I want to read the books that have been on my shelf for a long time that I haven't read. I tried. I got like 15% through War and Peace, and they hadn't even got to the war yet. And there's just a lot of names that sound similar to me. So there's very few books I've given up on, but that was one of them.
There you go. And letting go can be a beautiful thing.
Then you have more time to read other stuff.
Exactly.
So how about you? What any other tips that you do? We talked about keeping in touch with people and learning. How do you keep learning and making progress? Anything else you do?
Yeah. So I guess one thing that I'd like to comment on here is that for me, I actually can reach a point of feeling embarrassed if I get too busy. And what I mean by that is if I am, like, I'll often get, busy. I mean, there's going to be peaks and valleys in what you're doing. But if I reach a point where I'm getting so busy that I'm having to, turn around and potentially cancel plans with people that I had, or, things that are kind of some of those social fun types of things, I truly get just this uncomfortable feeling when I'm having to do that. And there's something about that trigger inside of me that helps to kind of keep myself in check, of how often I'm hitting that period of busyness. Because I think as I think through, that some of these examples we've gone through, they work really well if you hit pockets of being busy. But if you're just redlining all the time, it's hard to make any of these things work.
Right.
So for me, I feel very fortunate. I kind of have this built-in mechanism where I just kind of feel it, and I kind of know, and I am seeing these things unfold in front of me as I'm having to say no, or deprioritize something that really is important to me. Otherwise, maybe I'm not sleeping as much for an extended period of time. I find that when I'm really busy and have some of that stress, I will just naturally wake up even earlier, because my body just wants to get some of that freedom back.
Right.
So it's interesting. I want to throw that bit of kind of caution out there before, based on the topic of busyness in general, because it's not all just, well, have a list of little things you can do and you'll stay productive, because that doesn't work over the long term.
Yeah, it might be if you find yourself constantly being busy, and not just a short-term thing. Maybe you need to do an autopsy on that to say, what were the things that got me here in the first place? So a lot of times for me, it's I overcommitted to stuff. I didn't like to say no to stuff, so I said, yeah, I'll lead that session at the CRM conference, and yeah, I'll take this other project that I might not have time for, or sign up for something that looks interesting, but I really don't have time for. And that's the prioritization, because it can become addictive and give you a false feeling of importance if you are the busiest guy in the room. But ultimately it's self-destructive, and you can't do your best work. But caveat on this would be, it's if you are in just a seasonal busyness that is just because there's just certain times of the year, like end of the year with holidays, or graduation times, or vacation times. That's the stress of vacation to me, is because I'm always, when I'm going on vacation, feeling like, oh, I want to get some padding in here so that I can go and turn things off and not worry that things will fall apart.
Right. Cool.
So yeah, good tips. And if any of the listeners have any things they do to stay focused while they're busy, post them in the comments on the episode. So what about some technology tools? We haven't talked about productivity tools. Any new technology that you found that has been helpful to you?
So there are a couple of topics that I want to bring up here, Joel. One, I thought of you immediately when I saw this news flash across my desk a couple of weeks back.
Nice.
And it's specifically productivity in the Microsoft Dynamics 365 application, because the announcement was category-based tracking for Outlook and Exchange integration. And
Right.
Anybody who has followed you through other media, maybe not as much here, but Joel is Mr. Delegate tracking, and wanting to make sure that for people who have a role where they're just not going to be in using the technology, but you still want to get some of the information from calendar and meeting information, email information,
Right.
those sorts of things, wanting a delegate to be able to get that information into the platform. And there's been a mixed history of capabilities there. And I don't know, Joel, what did you think about that announcement?
I think it's awesome, because you're exactly right. And this is an example of how Microsoft and other technology companies build general technology platforms that can be used by any number of different situations and industries. But there's always the exceptions. There's always people that do things a little bit differently because of the culture or the way that they work. And so the thing with tracking is that it works great if you're the one doing the tracking. But if you are in a scenario where you're typically an executive or a partner in a firm, professional services or investment banking, private equity, any number of the, fancy financial services types industries, you've got some users who are not managing their own calendar. They have assistants who do it for them. And so basically the Microsoft tooling around tracking of activities didn't work. There were some scenarios back in the old days that somewhat worked, but they were client side, and with the elimination of client side, with the client side plugins, it didn't work anymore. So that was a pain point, and we actually put some of our customers in touch with the Microsoft team and built the business scenario, and that's where this came from, which is basically and the reason that the delegate tracking didn't work is with the new world of Outlook apps rather than plugins. The Outlook app model can't act on somebody else's calendar. It can only act on your calendar. But they came up with an idea, which isn't new to them. Other people like Riva do it, where you can have a category. In this case, you can have a category that says track in Dynamics 365, and either on an email or on a calendar appointment, you or somebody with access to your calendar can create an appointment, set a category, and have it track. This is also interesting because we do have come across scenarios where people want to use other mail apps on their phone than the Outlook app, and they want to track. And sure, we got folder level tracking, but that only can do up to 25.
Yep.
So this gives people the ability now in whatever email client they use, without having to use the Microsoft tooling or even install any kind of an app, to be able to track their activities. So it's pretty sweet, and I think it's going to be widely used. It even goes back to, I believe, CRM 2016 on premises. So it's a good thing.
Yeah. No, I was sure excited, and I figured you would be pretty juiced about it as well.
So maybe you and Britta need to do an update to the email tracking episode of Implement This.
I think we definitely should get that in the recording queue. Though I've been excited, our last couple of recording sessions and things that we're teeing up are based on listener questions. Those are always good ones. So I'll make a similar plug to.
So I have to send in the listener question. Matthew and Britta, could you please talk about delegate tracking?
Well, I wasn't going that way with it, but sure, go ahead. I'll take it that way too. We'll make sure to only use your first name, not your last name as well. Keep some anonymity there. Yeah. But I was going to say the same thing on the ProdCast side of things. I mean, we don't often do calls for kind of questions or kind of tips that you're using, but definitely if you have those, you can reach us through social media. We've got that info kind of at the end of each episode, or through comments on the post for these episodes. We certainly want to hit topics that are going to be relevant to you. So speak your mind, vote for those, and we'll be able to get them prioritized in there.
Yep. So a tool I found recently, and I think everybody with Windows 10 got this, is the timeline control in Windows. Down in the bottom of Windows 10, next to the search button, they used to have the task view, which you would hit and you would see all your open windows. They've replaced that with this thing called timeline, where you can see a timeline of what you were working on each day. Now, it currently only works with, I believe, some Microsoft apps like the Office Suite. Although I think they're building the tools or the hooks for other people to leverage it as well. But it's really useful. By default on mine it showed 2 days, but you could turn on the setting to go back to 30 days. So you want to know, okay, what was that document I was working on last Thursday? You can go and see it and pull it up. I find that extremely useful. I've had it for 2 days and I've already been using it a lot.
So I didn't know about this, but this is very cool.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it. It's I'm seeing things for Teams, for Edge, for Word, for Spotify, for what else is in here? Acrobat. Yeah. And some of these things I forgot it even worked on.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't know how much it's storing in there about details about those documents, but I find it's just helpful because if you, like me, go through a lot of different documents and a lot of different things, it's sometimes hard to remember. I had a case the other day where I had two different folders with things I were working on. I was looking in one and found it and couldn't find it, and then I looked in the timeline and found I had saved it someplace else.
Got it. So this speaks to me. So it's similar to I've mentioned in previous episodes the tool that I have called Manic Time that helps track what I'm doing on my computer and when. It's a paid feature on Manic Time to be able to have like the kind of screenshot. I'm seeing some screenshots of like the documents that I was working on here. So that's not something in the free version of Manic Time that I get. So this is nice to have some of the visual here as well.
Well, I think Manic Time is more of a time management tool. I don't see this as a time management tool. This is more of a work stream, so I can easily get back to what I was working on before.
Yeah, agreed. Well, but I will say one of the timeline views available in Manic Time goes through like what are the documents that you've had open. So you have a similar functionality there. It's just presented in a little bit different of a way. There's an application stream and a document stream that basically just shows title of the active window you were in. So that's not always perfect if you have a webinar open in one screen and a document that you're working on in another, doing some of that much adorned multitasking. You're only seeing one of the two, so it's not perfect, but you can get some of that. But it's definitely not the same kind of view of it. And the thing I'm liking about this, as I look at it, is you can just click to get back to that document, that website, or whatever you'd been working with. So this is pretty cool. There's a thing at the bottom. I don't know if you've played with it yet, since this is so new. The see activities on all your devices. Do you have that turned on?
Yeah, I saw that too. I haven't played with it, but yeah, supposedly that will track across phones as well.
Okay. I'll have to check that out, because that's another limitation on Manic Time locally. So
right. There also another thing that was in the update that is helpful for productivity that I haven't done a lot with is Focus Assist. If you go into the settings, you can turn Focus Assist on, and it will set automatic rules about when you can silence activities. So like things like notifications and whatever, you can put one of them that is very nice to me is when I'm duplicating my display.
Yeah.
So we get away from the things, get away from, people tweeting me, Scott Sewell, while I'm presenting, and have that pop up and everybody see a tweet that says, Joel's a great guy. So that's good. So yeah, I would look into it. There is a lot of things in that update. The last thing, which is something that I think Windows has been missing, is simple voice dictation. So if you've used voice dictation in Android or in iOS, it's really easy. You want to type into something, you can voice dictate. But with Windows, it's been the old Windows Vista. You got to train it, and then it's just cumbersome to use. But the spring update introduced more of a simple kind of voice dictation. So if you like that kind of thing, you can keep using. You can use that in Windows on your Surface or your computer now too.
Yeah. Yeah, I suspect that'll be one of those things, much like the, as touchscreen in, Windows environment became more and more useful. When I first had a touchscreen, I was like, I never really used the touchscreen. Now I go and I press on non-touchscreen enabled devices, thinking like, I just want to hit the OK button, but I don't want to go all the way and move my mouse with that precision. I suspect some of the voice dictation, as it gets better, will be that type of improvement in how I actually use my devices.
All right. Well, hopefully, Matthew, your life for the rest of the week won't be too busy. But But hey, if it is, you know how to be productive now.
Thank you much. Well, we're coming up on the due date for kid number 2, so that will be a definitely unproductive time when we hit that. But well, I think we'll be good for this next week.
All right, great. Thanks, Matthew.
Yeah, take care.
This has been ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio with Matthew C. Anderson and Joel Lindstrom. Follow Matthew on Twitter at @MCAnderson or on his blog, connectingthedata.com. Follow Joel Lindstrom on Twitter at Joel Lindstrom. ProdCast and the rest of the CRM Audio Network are available on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and anywhere else fine podcasts are available. This podcast is a production of Dynamic Podcasts, LLC.